When you've been on site long enough, you learn certain things. It's tough. Mistakes have consequences. And sometimes you've got to learn quickly. But what you also learn is that being shouted at, called out, even humiliated are part of the trade. It's woven into the day to day. And plenty reckon that this kind of verbal heat is what makes you tough, what pushes you to not screw up again. But does it really motivate more than being just treated with respect, getting encouragement, being shown that you matter? From first year apprentices up to seasoned workers, there's this feeling that you've just got to put up with it. If you mess something up, you expect a bollocking. If you don't know something, you can expect to be bawled out for it, publicly sometimes. Some of that is called banter or tough love. Older workers say, I was treated like that, so I'll treat others like it. It builds character. Plenty of them believe that being able to take it means you're cut out for this line of work. But then you hear the other side, apprentices saying they dread going to work because of who they work with, saying they feel worthless because of being yelled at in front of everyone, saying they avoid asking questions because they don't want to look stupid or be insulted. Some believe harsh talk is part of being in this job, but others feel like it's grinding them down. Now let's look at what studies have pulled out when they ask people off-site or adults in apprenticeships. What is this doing for you? There's research which shows that verbal abuse from supervisors or employers is widespread among construction apprentices. First years especially describe being at the bottom of the food chain, getting put down or humiliated for mistakes big or small. Sometimes mistakes are unavoidable or they're because someone didn't teach them properly. Doesn't matter. They still get yelled at. And that kind of abuse isn't just about feeling bad in the moment, it adds up. The people in these studies talk about anxiety, about mental stress, about dreading going to work, about feeling that they're not learning at all. They're basically just trying to survive. In one study of Australian construction apprentices, workplaces that offer training to supervisors on how to handle bullying or where apprentices got resilience support saw a shift, a positive shift. People reported better awareness of what bullying is, better confidence to call out or to handle it, and a better sense of belonging. None of that suggests yelling and abuse is building more people who stay. It's more the reverse. Those workplaces where verbal abuse is the norm tend to have dropouts, people leaving before they're finished, people burned out. So, what about encouragement? What about being told when you've done something well, being helped when you're stuck, being given respect, and even some breathing space to learn? The same studies show that where there's good supervision, where people talk you through things, correct you without shouting, that makes a big difference. When you've got someone who can say, okay, that wasn't quite right, but here's how you do it. Let's try it again. Instead of, you fucking idiot, you messed it up in front of everyone. You feel like you can do it. You feel less afraid. You learn more. And ultimately, you may well stay longer. Also, in those sites where supervisors have had training in handling bullying, where there's been toolbox talks or similar sessions explaining what banter is and what's gone too far, the culture shifts. People start speaking up. The idea that that's just how it is starts to look less like tradition and more like something you can actually change. Apprentices say they feel more motivated, more confident, not just fearful. So, is there any solid proof that verbal abuse motivates better or more than encouragement? Verbal abuse can force short term results. If you're being shouted at, you might move faster, not ask questions, double check your work, or avoid messing up because you don't want the grief. But that's out of fear more than inspiration. But those short term gains are often outweighed by the long term losses, dropouts, mental health hits, confidence shattered. When someone's morale is battered, they may show up physically, but mentally they're checked out. Learning slows, quality suffers, and burnout follows. Encouragement and respect tend to build on something that lasts. You want to turn up, you want to learn, you might stay with a company. You're more likely to pass on what you've learned. You build relationships. When things go wrong, and they will, you're more resilient because you believe someone's got your back. They're not just waiting to rip you down. Most people don't say abuse motivates me more. At best, they might say I'm used to it, or that's how I grew up in the trade. But when asked what they'd rather have or what helps them to stay or do better, the answers often point toward being treated decently, being guided, having someone explain when you mess up rather than just shouting at you. Why then does the old way persist? If it doesn't work well and causes harm, why do so many still shout, insult, push with harsh and unnecessary criticism? Part of it is the culture. This is a trade where toughness is admired. Being able to take a verbal kicking is sometimes seen as a badge of honour. Also, many don't even think about what the alternative feels like because they've never had anyone teach them how to give feedback without chewing someone out. So they don't realise just how much damage is actually being done. And power matters. If you're an apprentice, asking questions can feel risky. If the boss is short tempered, your tendency is to keep quiet. If you see someone always getting yelled at, you might decide it's just your turn. Even middle aged or older workers can get treated this way if they're in a less powerful position. And because complaining or speaking up often feels like trouble, people tend to accept the things that they shouldn't. So, what would change look like? Not big theory, just what would it feel better, different on site? Imagine asking questions and getting answers without someone rolling their eyes or laughing in front of everyone. Imagine someone spotting you're doing something well and calling it out with some praise. Imagine regular catch ups, someone checking in with you, not about tasks, but about how you feel, what's holding you back, what you need to get better. Imagine a site where banter is okay and everyone's okay with it, but everyone also understands when it goes too far. Training for bosses and supervisors in how to give feedback without putting someone down. Recognition of people who lead well, not just who work hard, but who lift others up. Making it safe for people to say, that comment actually bothered me, without it turning into a drama. Support for mental well-being, letting people know where they can go for help, who they can talk to. Sometimes a mate or a mentor on site, sometimes professional help. And here's how I see things. If someone asked me what motivates you more, the shout or the shout with respect, I'd pick the latter every single time. Being pushed, corrected, having standards, it's all important, but being treated like dirt doesn't help in the long term. It wears you down. You begin to expect less of yourself or avoid trying new things for fear of being humiliated. Encouragement builds risk taking, learning, pride. Verbal abuse builds fear, silence, and a longing for escape. Being treated with respect means you can still be held to a high standard. You can still be pushed, but you can be pushed with dignity. If I had to sum it up in one sentence, harsh words might get fast work once in a while, but encouragement gets more done in the long haul. If the industry wants people to finish apprenticeships, to learn well, to stick around, then changing how we speak to them matters. Because how you talk to someone doesn't just send a message, it changes what they believe about themselves. Treating someone like they belong makes them act like they belong. And to build better sites, better workers, better outcomes, you want people who believe they belong.